is Ahnjili, and I'm here to talk to you about my menstrual cycle, 50 cent, and right swipes. So in other words, I'm going to talk about how I spent the last 6 months recording my own internet uses in concert to my hormonal changes. So I'm a cognitive neuroscience researcher, and I love reading random papers about the human body. And so I stumbled upon this one paper called How One's Menstrual Cycle Can Influence Their Cognitive Function and Their Emotional Processing. So I decided to take it upon myself to look at how my internet use is affected by my hormonal changes. And so, in case you need to catch up on some basic biology, whether a woman wants to or not, her body definitely prepares her for having a baby each month. And so, basically, an egg is thrown into the lion fire in case she gets lucky, and it's flushed out during her menstrual cycle in case she doesn't. And so I used a very simple smartphone app called My Period Diary, which records and predicts whenever I'm menstruating and whenever I'm most fertile. I didn't take my ovulation date into account. And so the reason why I used my internet use as a representation of my cognitive function is because I'm really passionate about technology, and I see myself as a transhumanist. And I was actually inspired by Andy Clark's Natural Born Cyborg, which basically states that the human mind emerges not from the human brain, but in relation to how our tools affect the way that the human mind works. And so basically through ontological design, we create these tools and they redesign us. So I shamefully have to admit that I spend an average of 9.8 hours a day interacting with computers, tablets, smartphones, and such sorts. And as a consequence, my mind is routinely being converted into digital data. And this data variance allows me to recognize, recall, and reflect on any thought, image, or event that I've had in the past. And as part of this smartphone generation, I've been able to express my various cognitive functions and emotional processes throughout a variety of media types. And so I've actually archived or created a transcript of myself through self-digitalization. And so being on a budget, I've only used Google Chrome extensions to record my internet use. So time stats is an example, which basically records how much time I spend on various websites, and unfortunately Facebook is where I spend the majority of my time, but mainly for academic reasons, not for socializing. And so for the sake of this talk, I'm only going to talk about 4 aspects I looked into. I looked at a variety, but I'm just going to talk about my online shopping through ASOS, Tinder, Facebook, and YouTube. And so for Facebook, I used a Google Chrome extension, which basically not only looked at how much time I spent on Facebook, but how much time I spent on looking through people's profiles or for pictures or posting on various pages. And for YouTube, I use another Google Chrome extension, which basically also records how much time I spend on each video, which channels I frequently click on, and if I usually comment on them. As for Tinder, I couldn't find an app that would record my left or right swipe, so I just did everything manually, which wasn't actually too much of a hassle, but I looked at not only the number of swipes, but also the various props in profiles. So for my online shopping, I found that there was no change in the amount of money I spent or the amount of time that I spent shopping online, which was great to hear. And this was actually supported by a study that I had read prior to the project, saying that actually there's no effect of hormonal changes on one's economic behavior, which I found quite comforting. But I did find something quite strange, that if I was shopping when I was most fertile, I actually bought more red-colored items. In fact, it was the only time that I bought red-colored items, which I didn't realize. But this might have been swayed by the fact that I also read a paper earlier saying that red enhances a man's attraction to a woman, and surprisingly vice versa. So I guess if you're looking for a partner, wear red. On that note, For my Tinder use, in case those of you who are lucky enough to be in long-term committed relationships who are not aware of how Tinder works, but Tinder presents to you a series of profile pictures, and if you like someone, you swipe right. If you don't like someone, you swipe left. And so I wanted to record my Tinder use because I found another paper that stated that women were more likely to be promiscuous during their most fertile phase, and they're a little less choosy about their partners, which I guess makes reproductive sense. And I found that throughout my cycle that there was a significant number of left swipes, so rejections, more so than the number of right swipes, so the number of acceptance. But when comparing when I used my Tinder use from when I was menstruating to when I was most fertile, there was significantly more right swipes, so people that I was interested, than compared to when I was actually menstruating. And so now looking into the prompts, I wanted to see if there was a particular partner that I was interested in based on a variety of prompts. So, you know, having children or going to a gym, or if they had instruments or cars. And I found that you actually meet like a really strange number of profile photos on Tinder. But overall, there was the type of profile picture that I was attracted to did not vary throughout my cycle, which was nice. I mean, predominantly guys who showed off at the gym were more likely to succeed, but it wasn't really a significant difference. So in terms of my Facebook usage, though, the amount of time that I spent on Facebook didn't vary at all. However, the types of profiles I was interacting with did vary. So when I was most fertile, I was interacting with more male profiles in comparison to females. And so finally, I just want to talk about which artists I listen to the most, or the music videos I tend to replay on YouTube. And looking at this graph, you can't really tell that much. It looks pretty chaotic, but when I isolated each of the artists, I found that 50 Cent is a strangely accurate marker of when I was most fertile, and he was the only time that I played his music. So now I know that when I listen to 50 Cent, my body wants to make that baby. So I basically found out, in conclusion, that because I had read all these papers prior to conducting my experiments, I might have had a little biased tendency to follow my studies. Oops, sorry. But I'm still a logical person throughout. So thank you for listening. All right, cool. Thank you.